The long walk of 6,000 Latin American migrants crossing through Mexico to the United States in search of a better future is keeping U.S. leaders on the edge. Fleeing poverty and political repression, the dramatic exodus has seen an unprecedented spike in the past 2 months.
Because what we are looking to improve ourselves, to have a better quality of life. Because in our country, the situation is getting worse and worse, and we are looking only for an opportunity. What we're looking for is to work. We're not criminals. We're not bad people.
In the hopes of tackling the migrant crisis, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reached Mexico on Wednesday. The unusual Christmas week trip by the top American diplomat was abruptly scheduled as the rival Republican Party pressed U.S. President Joe Biden to crack down on migration as a condition for its support for one of his key priorities, which is the support for Ukraine. Around 10,000 people without authorization try to cross the southern U.S. border every day. It has forced the U.S. border authorities to shut down several legal crossings to focus on processing migrants.
We do not migrate for nothing. We look because the economy of our country is very bad. The security situation, that is why we look here.
On Thursday, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador discussed the migration crisis in a telephone call with President Biden. Biden agreed to send Blinken and Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas, along with White House migration officials Liz Sherwood Randall, to discuss the issue. The Mexican president told local reporters that Mexico will reinforce plans to deal with U.S.-bound migrants. His government has already said it was also at the breaking point on enforcement. Mexico is under agreements with both Biden and his predecessor Donald Trump to at least temporarily take in migrants seeking to cross into the United States. Trump, the frontrunner for a Republican nomination to challenge Biden next November, is again campaigning on anti-immigrant rhetoric. In his public speeches, Trump has been harshly accusing foreigners of poisoning the blood of the country. Already in northern Mexico, more than 11,000 migrants continue to wait in shelters to cross into the U.S. Many of those migrants are hoping to enter the U.S. through legal pathways established by the Biden administration, such as the CBP One Up, that automates scheduling appointments to claim asylum with border authorities. Our correspondent Susan Tehran is now joining us live from New York. Hi, Susan. What more do we know about this trip by Secretaries Blinken and Mayorkas? Is there any hope that this engagement will bring in any difference?
We'll have to wait and see, Eric, if this is not merely a photo op by the Biden administration, considering the fact that, as you mentioned, not only it's facing increasing pressure from Republicans on Capitol Hill, but American voters now cite these illegal migrations into their cities as a top concern going into 2024. The Biden administration has an American immigration and migration problem right now. It's hard to imagine how Mexico or other countries can really assist in that. It's an American border issue. And, while they want to divert it to this wider problem of migration, as Kamala Harris once did, as being the quote-unquote migration czar, immigration czar, a year ago or so, we saw that really nothing came out of that. And the reason for that is there's just so much these other countries can do. Right now, for example, New York is getting about 4,000 migrants a day. They're being bused here. New York is a sanctuary city, which means they have to be housed. ICE can't deport them and whatnot. And then you have other cities that aren't even on the border that are facing the brunt of this crisis. So what Antony Blinken and Alejandro Mayorkas want to talk with Mexican leaders about may be beneficial in the long run, but it's hard to imagine how it would solve the current crisis facing America's border, which just needs more restrictions. I mean, that's something that kind of seems plain in sight. Right. But, it's a failure that this administration has a problem trying to address.
Susan, the Mexican President Obrador did say that they are trying to reinforce the borders with the United States. But the problem here is the state of Texas. And we had the governor there, Greg Abbott, coming up with a new legislation, if I may say. What are Americans saying about Abbott's new legislation?
You know, you may hear murmurs on party lines about what Abbott is doing, and you're talking about that legislation where the state of Texas now has authority to arrest alleged migrants if they find out that they're illegally in the United States. That may seem like common sense, but because of the broken immigration system here in the United States, you have some saying that, you know, that's violating human rights. But you also have to consider the fact that Texas is now a state where the Biden administration has sort of had a hands-off policy on. You don't see administration officials going there and really seeing the crisis at the border, and they're sort of crying foul at what Texas is doing. Texas feels left alone, so they feel like they don't know how to deal with these migrations and how to house them. So, you know, reaction is on party lines once again, unfortunately. And, you know, the immigration problem here in the United States, just very quickly, this is something that's been going on for decades. But to see so much migration coming in from a border like the southern border, and now we're hearing from the north as well, has become now a national security concern as well.
All right, I've been talking to our correspondent live in New York, Susan Teherani. Thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.